Chapter 8: Licensing or Renting. In this day and time, a lot of things can be practiced wrong so long until they actually seem to be the right thing to do. In this chapter, I'm going to discuss some things, and I might be a little biased because I am a music producer, and I'm a music producer that came up in the 90s. So I may have a different perspective, but I just want to put these things into an order where everybody can see them and understand exactly where I'm coming from when I speak on the licensing or renting. In this day and time, you have a lot of producers that upload music to YouTube and other sources. And when they put the tracks up, they have an option to rent the track or to buy the track. Like I've said in other chapters, it's never wise to sell your music to anyone. It's always a great idea to license your music, whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive. Those are the best options that you have. I would never just write out sell anything that I create. That's my personal opinion. However, when we're on the subject of licensing or renting, they're actually the same thing. There's no such thing as renting a track out. That terminology has been going around for some years now. It's actually called licensing. When you put a track on YouTube or any other website and you are wanting to have this track where multiple people can use it, you're giving them a license. You should have a licensing agreement attached to whatever track that you are giving them the rights to use. Instead of calling it renting, it should be called licensing, because that's exactly what it is. You are giving them a license to make a song to your track non-exclusively. And when a person wants to get the exclusive rights, then you have another agreement that gives them exclusive rights, which means that nobody else can use that track once they get the exclusive rights to it. That gets rid of all of the misunderstanding, all of the renting phrases being put into these descriptions when you have a track up for download, all the uses of saying you can buy this track for X amount of dollars. That is the wrong answer. You are putting yourself in a position to be work for hire without a person even negotiating a work for hire for you. A lot of producers don't understand that once the master of the song is created, normally there's an agreement that comes to you that puts the phrase of work for hire in the paperwork for the master. But when you sell a person a track exclusively and you tell them that they own it, then in fact the master is theirs and the track without the lyrics is theirs. You're giving all of those rights away. So that's never a good idea, to put an option of selling somebody something and giving them ownership of your music. Here is one of the main reasons why you should never do such a thing. If a song becomes a hit and the artist is the owner of the music, you get none of the proceeds from those sales, publishing, or any monetization whatsoever. So you have to keep that in mind before you give a person an option to own something that you created, especially if you're charging $250 for the track, because you never know who's buying the track, what artist is going to be on the track. And if there's no stipulations in your agreement, then you are hung out to dry with no options of collecting any proceeds for that music that you created on the back end of those publishing payments. A lack of knowledge will cause us to do a lot of things, a lot of impractical things. Put names on things that are not correct. Put options to things that are not correct. You have to know exactly what you are doing and what you are giving away and what you're putting at stake. I've heard several stories where people have sold tracks for $250 or less, and there were hits made out of those tracks and they never got one dime for them. And the best thing that they can come up with is that they got exposure and they were able to do X, Y, and Z after that. That could be true. But what if you don't get the exposure? What if you're not able to capitalize off of that hit that you have produced? So you have to be very careful how you name things, how you go into doing business, and how you maintain your business. Never opt yourself out of making money, whether it's present or future. If you're giving up rights to your music, you are in fact nullifying any chance that you have to make any money in the future on any work that you've done. That's pretty much like working a job and turning down a retirement fund or IRA. That's what that's equatable to. So it's never a good idea to put yourself in a position where you cannot monetize off your work in the future. As a producer, you are already dealing with a stacked deck against you. Let me explain. When you give the rights to the master to the record label or the artist, and you deem it work for hire, meaning that the lyrics and the music together is the master, and you're deeming that work for hire, which is the standard rule that the record labels and the music industry has for a music producer, then all of the master fees that are accumulated for that record, whether it's a sample or somebody's doing an interpretation of some music that you have created, you get no money, no fees, no advancements towards that master use at all. My personal opinion, that is not a fair deck of cards. That is not fair business for a person that has input and created half of what that record is. Because you have to keep in mind, if the master wasn't part ownership of the producer and the artist, then there would never be a use for a contract to establish those terms. So in fact, all the money that's collected, whether it's distribution fees, clearance fees, the producer has no rights to any of that money. The only thing that they can do, or we can do, is sign off on the publishing rights and clear the record that way and have our involvement that way. But there's never any monies involved when you are given an okay or clearing your publishing on a master, because you're not the owner anymore. So that's just something to think about. Before you go and tag one of your tracks and put a rental price on it or put a for sale price on it, think about the money that you are giving away. Think about the opportunities that you are waving away. It doesn't matter if the record sells 20 copies, 10 copies. There's a value in that record. There's a value in that recording. You should never give away any amount of money. Ever. Should never waive any opportunity to collect any money. Ever. So we have to learn how to practice the correct business and the correct business terms. Put an end to the rental and the for sale signs on your music, because it should never, ever be for sale. I'm going to show you the importance of the ownership of the masters. A couple of years ago, I did a song with an artist, and the song got interest from a video game. And the video game company wanted to license this record for one of their games. I was ecstatic and very happy about it. So before the negotiations in the business was handled between all the parties involved with the song and the video game company, the record label made sure that paperwork was done on the song before we got into any negotiations with the video company about that song. And the reason it was important for that paperwork to be done is, without it done, the producer, me, was a co-owner of the master. So they had established that the master belonged to them and they was the owner of the master. So after me and the artist produced and created this song, we did that paperwork. So when the negotiations came, the fees were very nice. So when I collected the fees for the licensing for the song, I noticed that it was only half of what the projection was. So I reached out to the video game company and I asked when were they going to pay the other half of the money. They said, well, the other half is for the master. So you would need to get with the record label and see if you are going to be able to get any of the money from the master. We've already paid the other half for the master fees to the record label. On this particular deal, I had waived down my advance fees to work with this particular artist. And the only person that really won in this equation was the record label. Why were they the only person that really won? Because they didn't have to create anything. They got the track on a discount fee, and then they got a master fee that was a very large amount of money for barely doing anything but creating a contract to get signed. So you always have to understand the importance of what you have, the rights that you have, and understand certain moves and why they are being made. I learned a very valuable lesson doing that deal. And I understood that they had to get the paperwork done so that they can have the rights to the masters and so that they can collect the master fees from the video game company. So don't ever let anyone dictate to you what the rules are. Always ask questions, ask why, ask when, and ask where. Because if you don't ask the questions, you definitely will never get the answer. And you could very well be giving money away. I didn't know that I was giving money away or even given the option to negotiate to make more money until I did the deal. Then I understood exactly why it was such a push to have that producer deck signed before we went into negotiations with the video company. It's always important to understand what type of business you're doing and why you're doing it, and understand why moves are being made. Because you can be giving away a lot of money, a lot of opportunities that may be a once in a lifetime opportunity for you. So always practice doing business the right way. Always practice the proper terminologies. It's very important.